Yeah, so this masked grass finch, you can tell something happened to his leg. Like, I mean, he had a
Yeah.
full like femur break. So like when he was perching when I got him, he had like one leg perched, a wing
Uh-huh.
out, and then like a leg that was just like a noodle.
I just don't know how you like got it bandaged because I've had birds break their legs before and I've tried to like splint them and then their legs are so tiny. I just have given up and unfortunately they've either just lost their leg or some of them did heal, but I don't know. How did you get the bandage on there
So
to
it
set
took
the leg?
two tries. It was super hard. So the the first try I tried to use, so like the splint guide, you got to you basically splint it against itself, and then you've also got to put something in between so that you don't get like a bed sore in there.
Yeah.
So the first time I tried to do cotton ball, like a little piece of a cotton ball, and then like the medical tape from like I literally took a band-aid and cut it into strips, and that it just didn't work. And then so I actually got, do you know what like steri strips are that like they
Uh-huh.
put, yeah. So I got some steri strips I had. And then the first thing I did to really make it so I could see was I cut like with a scissors, I just cut the feathers around the leg, like
Nice.
back.
Yeah.
So then I got a good view of it, and to set it, I had to be so gentle. It was so nerve-wracking. Chris, the bird's biting me the whole time. He's
Oh,
all
I'm
pissed.
sure, yeah.
So, which I was like, again, we've talked about that before, like good sign, like, he's not just, yeah,
Right.
he's healthy other than this broken leg. And I
Yeah.
could see he still had circulation to the lower leg. So I just pulled it out a little bit, and I was hoping that that would kind of align everything. And then I just let it go back. And then I actually took like a little strip of the pad part of a Band-Aid. That's what I put through. And the
Okay.
first steri strip I wrapped around that so that the leg was like chicken winged back,
Hmm.
or like this, I guess would be the right view. And then I took another steri strip and wrapped it all the way around its body under the wings. So the leg
Okay.
was splinted to itself and then against his body, like kind of in the natural angle
Yeah.
if a bird was like flying. And then I just left him like that for 4 weeks, kept him in a small cage where he couldn't fly really. No perches or anything, just soft bottom and seed and water, and monitored him. I was worried about an infection. He never
Hmm.
did get an infection.
I mean,
So I know I
the good
was,
thing is like he never broke skin, right? I mean, it
I
wasn't
think
like a
it
compound
did,
fracture or it did break skin.
it did a little bit, but I also, and like this is a pro tip, by the way, I use human triple antibiotic cream.
Yep.
Works great as a topical on your dog, bird, whatever. You don't want to get in their eyes or in in their system because it will wreck their guts. But for a top, so and like I've had a button quail that had like a rat in bad rat injury, antibiotic cream, like when they peck each other in the head, antibiotic
Hmm.
cream.
Yeah.
So I just put some of that on there and then kind of let it. And the guide said 3 weeks. I gave it an extra week, and then when I cut everything off, I also had to peel that steri strip off, which some had kind of come off in the ensuing time, but I definitely pulled some feathers out. He's all pissed at me again. That bird is never going to like me. He doesn't know I saved his leg, but so
What
now he's in a hospital cage so he can fly again.
was he able to like balance on his other leg when you had it bandaged? I mean, or was he just kind of like tipped over on his side for 4 weeks?
No, he would use a wing some, but he basically was just kind of sitting on his belly with his legs up tight. So
Yeah.
he was basically just kind of laying on the ground. He was on bed rest basically, but he could still eat. He was still eating millet and seed and drinking water. So like obviously or he'd be dead. So
Yeah.
I mean he was a really good patient. I mean I'd give him more credit than I'd give me honestly. But yeah,
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to have to do that again. But you play the cards you're dealt.
Well, I look at that as like this is a good learning moment, and it's not necessarily the topic that we're going to share for this podcast, but when you have an injured bird like that, I mean, I think anytime anyone tells me that they have a sick bird, what do I do? And it's like, do what you just did, Jay. You give them a small hospital cage, so separate from all the other birds. You provide some heat so that they can always have some warmth because it's really hard for finches to retain heat if they're sick or injured. And so that additional heat
Hmm.
is great, but make sure you put it in a place of the cage that they can regulate. If they're cold, they can scoot to the heat. If they're hot, they can scoot away from it. And then plenty of fresh food and water, but in a place that they can access it, right? I mean, if you're putting the food perches up halfway up in the cage where some of them go, like through the door slots, he's not going to be able to get it because he's injured, right? So making sure that it's accessible to them, for their needs. And so
Yeah, I
good
bought some
basic tips.
bowls that are like they're for serving like dips or something at your house, and they're pretty low, and that's what I
Hmm.
use in those situations. Or I have some that are the tops of like old like vitamin bottles,
Yeah,
stuff
yeah,
like that that are they're like only a little bit tall, and you have to change the water more. It's a pain. You have to
yeah.
monitor it more, but
I I
uh,
have
you know,
similar bowls to that, but they're like glass or ceramic, so they're heavy enough that the birds won't tip them over,
yeah, mine
but they're
are, yeah.
they're small and shallow enough that they can access them if they can't fly or anything like that. So
Yeah, and I just changed his cage like every 2 days. I definitely threw away some good seeds, some good millet, but it was worth it. And yeah, now he's not great gripping the perch with that leg yet, but he's back to balancing on 2 legs.
good.
So
Yeah, I
even if
saw your
that's
video that you posted the other day on Instagram.
yeah, even if that's the end result, I like he just loses some mobility in that leg. I still think that's better than no leg. I mean, he can still use it. So yeah, it's just one of
So
those one more story to the for the book.
so tips for our listeners: if you have an injured bird, reach out to Dr. J, and he'll be able to take care of it.
And I did. I have a vet friend that I consulted with, and he kept telling me, he's like, it's not too late to change professions. I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to vet school
If you didn't
in
have to
my
go back
30s.
to 8 years of school, then great. Let's do it. But
Yeah, no, and the debt, no, no. But I'll stick to
no.
just doctoring my birds. But yeah, yeah, it was stressful, and but I was rooting for him, and he, like I said, he did the lion's share of it, right? And just like it's so easy, I feel like for Finches just to be like, oh, something's wrong with me, I'm gonna die,
Yeah.
and he didn't. He's a fighter. I got to come up with a name for him.
Yeah, no
I think
kidding, man.
I think I might name him Lazarus.
Brought him back from the dead.
But yeah, I like
Or the brink of death.
right, yeah, I like the little biblical name. Like I got prodigal, now I might have Lazarus. But my first mass
You need
grass
a
finch pair are Zorro and Catherine Zeta-Jones. So I got a bunch of funny bird names, but I think he might need to be Lazarus.
you need a good name for your crazy Borg, like Judas or something, or
Murder Lou.
yeah, there you
I mean,
go.
he escaped a funny name because he got the name before he revealed his bad habits.
Uh, my daughters have named most of my really pretty pink Borks. I mean, and they're all like the one is Pinkalicious, and then we've got Pink Lemonade and Lollipop, and one is Ruby. All of them are trying to like keep the pink theme going, but yeah, it's
Pinkalicious sounds like she should be like a 70s like Afro
right.
like funky chick. That's such a funny name.
We're still trying to find a name for yours that you'd kicked me the rainbow back.
Mhm.
He's tamed right down. He flies down to me every time I walk in to feed him. He's become quite friendly and
Yeah, my friend Cindy, does my hand feeding for me. It's been a total blessing to find her. She's
that's
so
awesome.
nice, and she's so good at. I mean, they are like when I get them back from her, they're like almost annoying. Like they try to like it's actually this is true. So like they try to like land on your face. They're so excited to see
Uh-huh.
you. It's like almost like a puppy.
Yep.
And so I sold one to a family in town, and he was recalling to them by his name on the third day they had him, which is like
Wow. That's awesome.
insane. I posted a video of it. It's like an insane. That's
Uh-huh.
wild for any bird that like he was
Yeah.
just like, "Yep, you're my people now. I'll come to you."
Yeah.
But she asked me the other day. She sent me a message. She's like, "Hey, random question. He flies like on her face some. Like, is that weird or anything?" I was like, "Nah. He just is so excited to see you that
Yep.
he can't help himself. He's
It's
just
just
trying to land on you."
He's wanting to be a part of the action. I have to be careful when I'm filming in the aviary because Pink Lemonade will always fly on the phone, and her tail always goes over the camera every time. I have to edit it out. Drives me bonkers. And then the hard part is when my wife feeds the birds for me because she doesn't really like the birds and she doesn't want them to fly on her. So my oldest daughter has taken that specific aviary that Pink Lemonade and your bird, they're in there together, and Mikey. Like all the friendly birds are in the one aviary so that my oldest daughter can feed them and my wife doesn't have to worry about them flying on her head because
You
she's like, nope, that's a hard no, not happening.
you should show your kids Mardi Gras colors, and they can
Oh
come up with a
yeah,
Mardi Gras name for it because it's
I
from
like that.
Mobile. Um,
I like that.
just like Mardi Gras.
They love Princess and the Frog, so maybe they'll have to.
Yeah.
It's kind of a southern.
Um,
That's more
well,
Louisiana, but
speaking of my friend Cindy, you've got a female. Mikey's get maybe I'm um,
no, you're good.
blowing the lead on that, but yeah. So and it's gonna be super pretty and super tame cockatiel coming your way.
Well, and
Um,
Mikey. I mean, he's 17 years old, going on 18. But the he's pretty stout bird and still super healthy, and he still has that drive, if you know what I mean. So
that mojo,
I'm
maybe
hoping
next
maybe we
year.
could next year kick some babies out with him, even if I need to hand feed him. But um, poor dude, he's gone almost 18 years into his life and has no offspring to his name, and so
Oh,
he deserves a chance. So we're gonna
we'll see
try.
if we can get him to the end zone. But either way, she'll be a sweet pet bird. And it's funny, I was texting Chris about it. I got the DNA back, and the male is going to Charles Cole.
Nice.
So Charles, you and Chris will have siblings, and but I was like, I actually literally said to Chris, like, I'm pretty much sending you this cockatiel, whether you want
You
it or
did.
not. I believe is what I said. I was like,
You
cockatiel's
did.
coming, so just be
I,
ready.
I've always been hesitant. I mean, Mikey, he's great with the finches. That's why I have him in there. But more times than not, cocktails are not good with finches, and so I've always hesitated getting another one. So I'll have to have a backup plan for her because I would love for them to be together, and so I'm debating if I put them in my one bigger flight or if I try them in the aviary together eventually. And then
I
if that
would
works out, we'll
think
keep it that way. But if not, I'll have to have some backup plans for them to make sure that they've got their own space and the finches don't bug them.
the flight she was born in has weavers, canaries, doves, budgies,
Okay,
and her parents. So,
awesome.
and then she's been raised with these borks and a sibling. So I would think she'll be okay.
Okay. And
Um,
yeah, I mean, the aviary is big enough that the finches can get out of their way. I think it's the only ones I ever worry about is the brand new baby finches that don't know who Mikey is or the new cocktail. And sometimes Mikey has never like bit anyone, but he tries to be the boss and the bully. He's just a grump. And it takes a couple days for those babies to realize it, but other than that,
leave the big bird alone.
yeah, other than that, the other birds know not to perch right next to them, and then they're happy and cohesive together. So
Yeah, the shaft tail, the surprise late shaft tail I kicked out this year that I kept thinking was didn't make it, and then every time I'd go to empty out the nest, it would pop out on me and go, oh, I have to put it back. It it yeah, I've been watching it in the aviary, and it's really mobile now. I mean, it's fine now, but for a couple weeks it kept landing. Even I've got eight shaft tails, or yeah, I think I have eight. So it
uh-huh.
kept, yeah, I think it was landing next to shaft tails that weren't its parents, and they just be like, "Wait, get out of here," and it was just having a hard time for a little bit. Just like somebody feed me.
So the funny story this week. So I've taken all of my nest boxes out of my aviary, and then on my one aviary, I have three nest boxes still on the inside part. I've got Amadinas with chicks, which is awesome because one's if it's a female coming your way,
Heck
and
yeah,
then
my
I
male's
had
been
two.
singing.
Has he? Yeah, I'm sure he's gonna be happy. And then so the other one, so I pulled down the other nest box and it's kind of down and lower, and I hadn't seen any birds in there. I pull it down, I had a baby parrotfinch in there. I was like, oh sweet.
Mm.
Like so we got a red-faced parrotfinch in there coming out, and then the other nest box I had shaft tails in there, and So I pulled the nest box down. Like I hadn't even looked in it. I didn't, and I was honestly, if it was empty, I was just gonna pull the nest box and put it away because I don't want them to breed anymore.
Hmm.
So I go to pull it down. Shaft tail bolts out, and a baby Amadina finch falls out as he comes flying out. Like, and it was probably like 4 days old. And I was like, what the heck? So I look in there. We've got two baby Amadina finches and two shaft tail finches, babies in there. And they're like brand new. I mean, 1 to 3 days old between the four of them. But they were feeding the Amadina chicks. And I was like, like the shaft tails.
So they got cut. They got cuckooed. They got
Yeah, yeah, they
yeah.
did. And I mean, and cutthroat babies, they are 100% different than any Australian finch, right? They're dark skinned,
Hmm.
they're like wide build, kind of like canary chicks, you know. And so I ended up pulling the two Amadina chicks and putting them in with the other Amadina pair that their chicks were pretty similar in age. So I threw them in there so that they have a better chance. But I thought it was pretty funny. And then the next day, Jay, I go out with my aviary, six baby zebra finches, brand new ones, out in the aviary. I'm like, what the heck? How did I took all the nest boxes down? And so I'm like combing through the aviary. I have one fake plant tree in the corner. They had built a nest back there without me knowing and fledged six chicks. I'm like, oh my gosh, like I cannot stop the zebra finches.
Life finds a way.
They are just crazy. But it was pretty fun. I mean, it was good. And half of them were like crested babies. They're actually really cool. One of them was pied, kind of throwing
Oh
out
yeah,
some
I
different
saw your
colors. But
video with the pod. I've got some
yeah,
great pods going on right now. The best pods like I've ever seen, and I didn't mean to. I didn't know this hen I got had the genetics or the cockbird, and then all of a sudden I'm getting like half pied, like some cool stuff coming out. So it's been fun. But I was gonna ask you, and then we got to talk about what we're gonna actually talk about. But this is a episode of the Tired Brains podcast, by the way.
yeah.
But is crested, if the dad is crested and the mom is not, do you get all crested?
Um,
Because I think I got a fawn that isn't, that belongs to
so
them,
so for
and she's
zebra
a hen.
finches, the interesting from what I'm finding out, and that's the one thing I'm pretty good with like zebra finch genetics and some other bird genetics. So most birds, the crested gene is recessive, meaning if one of the parents has it, then all of those babies come out split. So they visually do not have a crest, but they're all split to crested. And then if you put those babies back with another bird that's either split to crested or shows the crest, then they'll have them. So that's the case with like canaries, per se.
Hmm.
Um, but my zebra finches, so I only had one female crested. None of my other finches have ever been crested. I've never had any crested genetics within my flock, visually at least. And her babies, she kicks out, and about 50% of her babies are crested. So I
So,
don't, and I've had both male and females crested. So I don't know. Yeah, hooray. So I don't know. I mean, it's obviously it's a dominant gene, but I don't know how that
what
plays out.
percentage or whatever?
So if we've got any listeners out there that know the crested genetics with zebra finches better, like let us know because I've been trying to figure that out, and they're just popping them out like crazy now because I've had a couple of my crested babies that I held on to last breeding season, and again paired them with normal zebra finches, and they're kicking out crested babies as well. So it's got to be a dominant gene, but not sure
So
how
I've
it plays with
gotten
males and females.
two clutches out of my your crested that you sent me. The first clutch, they were three, two cockbirds and a hen, and they were all crested, but they were also all they were all chestnut flanked white, except for one was like a wild type that was crested. But then this go round, I got two. I got a male and a hen, and the hen is fawn and she's not crested, but the chestnut flanked white he is.
Hmm,
And then they've got three babies in the nest now. They're going to fledge any day now, and then they'll be done for the year. But that uh, I got to look and see if those are crested or not. I just kind of they're in kind of the
right.
nest they're in. It's kind of hard for me to get my head at the right angle, but I know they're
Yeah.
in there and I can see they're alive and stuff, but it's like I have to like crick my neck and I can't like stay there long enough on my tiptoes to look. But so I'll be interested to see that. But
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, I don't know. It's mine have thrown out all different colors too. That the crested hit. Like this is the first pied baby they've ever thrown out, and that one was crested. I've had normal crested, I've had fawn, I've had chestnut flanked white. So I don't know. I don't. There
zebra finch
doesn't.
genetics are so there's
Yeah,
no true wild type left
I
in
was gonna say that there doesn't seem to be a rhyme or reason to it, and I know for a fact that all of my zebra bloodlines did not have crested in them until I introduced the one female last year. And so, yeah, I don't know. It's baffled me. I've tried to do a bunch of research on it and find out, but I haven't found a whole lot on the crested piece. So if anyone is out there that knows it, fill us in because I would like to learn it. I love the genetics side of things, and I'm always trying to figure out colors and who's recessive and dominant, and that intrigues me on a lot of
yeah, I'm
species. And so,
my mom loves that, so she's a biology major. I'm not as like people always ask, they're always like so excited about like, oh, if you pair this bird. I'm like, I just like making birds. I'm not
yeah.
super concerned about it. They're all pretty to me, but it is the crested thing is doesn't I don't understand how it works. Like their
I don't either.
DNA tells them to, and I mean I don't know anything about hair.
Are there crested Gouldian finches out there?
Yes, not in
There
the
are.
United States. I've seen them in like Japan, I think.
Okay, I didn't know
Just
if
on
they
the
had
internet.
those yet.
I didn't go bird
Yeah,
aviary watching in Japan.
right.
Wish I had, but no. Yeah, I've never. I think I've seen them. I mean, obviously, there's crazy canary stuff going on. I have crested societies, crested
Uh-huh.
zebras. I've seen crested borks.
Yep, I've seen crested
Um,
borks. Yeah.
and I'm trying to think if I've seen. I think I might have seen crested shaft tails. Trying to think if I've seen anything else crested.
I have seen crested. What was it? Was it cordon blues? It was a wax bill. I think it was
That's
cordon
nuts.
blues. I think it was cordon blues. It was like a crested pied cordon bleu. Which reminds me, I kicked out that pied starfinch. It's actually pied. It's starting to get
Oh
its
yeah, which is
starting to
like,
get its adult feathers. I'll have to see if I can get a picture of it and put it in this. It doesn't sit still very well for me to take a good picture, but
yeah, that'd be cool to see. Yeah, I mean, yeah, getting a picture of a starfinch is tough in general. Um, yeah, that'd be cool to see. I mean, the like I sent you that video a while back of the all white cordon but when you shine the
uh-huh.
light on it, it still has the blue like glow. Like,
Yeah,
and
that's
I'm not
cool.
trying. I'm not. I in most birds, I don't really love pied. Like I'm not trying to make like
Yeah,
pied parrot finches, for example, as a general rule.
right.
But all like fully pied, like all white, and then it's still like there's some. You get to a point where it does look really cool, so it's
Yeah.
interesting.
I
All right,
real quick, my
yeah,
one
yeah,
and I think I don't know if they're all pied and but like I like the all white cutthroats with the
yeah.
red or the yellow
Still with the red,
slash. Um,
yeah.
Someday I'll get my hands on those. Those are awesome. But yeah, I'm
And
not a huge
white
fan of the
shaft
pied
tails are
genetics.
cool too. Yeah, I like all white more than I like pied. Except for I will say the zebras that I have that are pied, I'm like, man, that is actually. And I've posted them before, but I'm kicking out some like you're actually quite pretty.
That's
So
awesome.
maybe I'm changing my mind about pieds as this conversation.
I like it.
Um, all right, I'm Jay,
I'm Chris,
and we are
the bird
Bird
brains.
Brains. Sorry, I bungled that. It's so late. I'm so tired. I've been in three states
Oh,
today.
that was beautiful. That was
Driven
one
like a
for the
million
record.
miles.
You have, man.
Um,
You're just traveling the whole U.S. down there, man.
Not trying to. Um, all right, today, and we're 25 minutes into this episode, but today,
We'll make it quick, guys.
yeah, we're going to talk about some of our pet peeves. This is a pet
Yes.
peeves episode.
Bird Brains Podcast with Chris and Jay. The Bird Brains Podcast with Chris and Jay. The Bird Brains Podcast with Chris and Jay. Bird Brains, Bird Brains. The Bird Brains Podcast with Chris and Jay. The Bird Brains Podcast with Chris and Jay. The Bird Brains Podcast with Chris and Jay. Bird Brains, Bird Brains.
All right. Before we get into it, we'll make this quick too. Couldn't do this like we're doing it without New Zealand. Get on their website, use code BirdBrains, 10% off. It's Perchville section. They've got seed, they're getting supplies, they're getting medication, everything. We're going to make it the one-stop shop for finches in that section. They've also got a ton of stuff for big birds, big hookbills, more coming for that too. They have really cool toys, all kinds of stuff, you name it. And then we have the Bird Brains Perch Box subscription box coming soon. So you sign up for it. Every month you get new supplies, new cool stuff to try out. It's a great way if you're like, oh, I don't know if my birds will like this or that. Easy way to do it. Everybody likes fun surprises. You can give it as a gift. If maybe there's some couples out there listening and your husband and wife that both do it. One of you gives it to the other one for a present or something. That kind of thing. So like I wish I don't have a brother that does birds. You've got two, so you've got easy Christmas presents
I
lined
do,
up.
yes. I know. I actually was just going to say that holidays are coming up. Go out, buy some stuff, and drop in the comments down below if you guys, after you see this, go in and get something, whether it's some food or a toy or something like that. We'd love to see what you guys have bought from them, and so that we can share it and be happy that
Already
you guys
reasonable
support us.
prices. You get
Yeah,
10% off. They keep sponsoring us. Do it.
yeah, please.
All right. Pet peeves. Pet peeves. Um, I got I could think of a lot, and I don't want this to be like a negative Nancy episode, but there's some major ones, and I'm like every time I'm like, oh. Um, so I'll say like poor animal husbandry in
Conditions.
yeah, in especially like the big box pet stores. I don't know why we're triggering balloons tonight, but and I don't necessarily mean, and I know a lot of you are thinking like, yeah, they have them in these tiny cages. I don't necessarily mind birds being for sale in what's hopefully a short-term situation
Right.
with in a smaller display cage. That doesn't in the grand scheme of that bird's life, that's not going to cause huge problem. But like, and I won't name names, but like I went in a big box store a few months ago. They had some canaries, and I looked, and they had zebra finches next to it. Well, the zebra finch cage had two waters, and the canary cage had two food bowls. And it took me about 5 seconds to figure out, like, somebody put two and two instead of one and one.
Someone's dyslexic like I am and made a
Yeah.
mistake.
And it's just like, look, like we have to, and that's one thing, but then it also translates to like, can't tell you how many DMs I get. It's like, hey, just got a pair of zebra finches, and then they show me the cage, and it's
Mhm.
like a tiny little square for like, which is really not great for a parakeet, but it's a parakeet cage,
Yeah,
and they have one perch and like a swing in there, and they're like, and I'm like, oh, we got to talk about a whole bunch of stuff.
right. And
So,
I think for me, Jay, and I want to preface with this first. I've made a lot of animal, not just birds, but animal mistakes in my life. I mean, I think that's part of learning, that's part of growing, and I think that's okay. I think that's life, right? I mean, we're not perfect. We make mistakes. We
I
learn
make
as we
mistakes with
go.
my kids, yeah.
And so I want to say that we're gonna do stuff, but I think going along with what you just said at the end there, Jay, if you're going to get something, doesn't even matter, any animal, or if you're gonna go somewhere, if you're gonna go on a trip, you're gonna buy a house, like it comes back to what I say before, what we always say, Jay, like do your homework, right? Do some research. Like it is so easy now to just pull up your phone and be like, I want a pair of zebra finches. What do I need for a pair of zebra finches? And you can come up with, it'll give you 100 different websites
Yeah,
of
a
options.
thousand.
for different cages, things like that. Like, try to learn and understand what you're getting into before you just pull the trigger. And to be honest with you, I think I'm an impulse buyer. Like, if I see something and it's awesome, I'm like, yeah, I need it right now, and I buy now, ask questions later. But I've learned now, especially when it comes to animals or other humans, etc. Um, do some research. Make sure you understand at least what you're getting into a little bit. Try to buy, a decent living space, things like that, etc. for the birds. I mean, we just have so much information at our fingertips right now. It is really easy, and I think going with what Jay says, many times we get DMs of like, hey, I just bought a cage or I just bought a pair of birds. Like, what do I need to feed them? Or, what kind of cage do I need to have them in? And I think that needs to always be reversed. You always should always be looking at what you need to feed them, what you need to house them in before you ever buy anything. Have the cage in your house ready before you even ever introduce anything into it. So I think that's just it's a pet peeve of mine, but also like a learning moment as well, and something that I want people to take away of do your homework first, look into it, do some research, make sure you know what you're getting into, especially if you're buying like a big, huge parrot that are like children and dogs. They have way more emotions and feelings and are not as forgiving as like a little zebra finch is. And you got to make sure that you know what you're getting into, or you're going to be regretting it, and then that poor animal is going to be rehomed again, and its life upturned for how many times that it already has throughout its lifespan. So I think that's probably my biggest one, is just making sure you do your homework, know what you're getting
Yeah, and
into.
like I impulse buy too. I think everybody does. I think it's part of the human experience in the modern age, right? Like there's a reason that stores have like big, bright, shiny signs, and
Yeah.
every things don't cost $4; they cost $3.99, right? They're
Right.
trying to get you. Oh, I'll get that. Uh, but with modern technology, everybody watching this, you have the internet. It's so easy, even in the moment, to be like, okay, I'm gonna buy this in 5 minutes while I stand here in the store. Let me just do just the most minor, like, I'm not saying you need to be a zebrafinch expert before you buy zebrafinches. In fact, I don't think that makes sense. But
Right.
like, just like a quick Google, can we do a Google?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, and we before we turned the camera on, Jay, I shared a few experiences of some birds that I had sold, and then the individuals had reached out later and the birds had ended up dying, and so I'd asked, hey, what does the housing look like? Send me pictures of your cages. Like, I'm trying to understand the situation and the scenario that they put the birds in to see if, okay, what was it? Was the bird not healthy that I give them? Which I know my birds are healthy when I send them out. I don't sell sick birds, but just to make sure I understand. And many times it's, like it's like old dog pens that they had put them in, or they had the birds in the garage and they died from the car exhaust, things like that. And I have a teaching moment to them saying, hey, like you got to make sure that you have your birds in the right environment. That's something you should have known and done before you ever bought the bird and taken it home. And I didn't sell them any more birds because I knew the living situations that they were going into. And I said, sorry, I don't have any more birds to sell to you. And so sometimes those are frustrating as well. And I want you guys to still reach out and say, hey, like what can I do in this situation or not? But I think sometimes it's common sense, right? Like I think in my head, I wouldn't put my kids in my garage to live with my car because there's so many so many different hazards out there, right? You got car exhaust. If you keep a lawnmower in there, I mean, you got gas fumes. It gets hot and cold really easy. It's the same for your animals. They can experience the exact same things that your kid would. They just can't use words to tell you that they either don't feel good or something is in a way that they don't like. And so just use some common sense in those areas, I think, for me is my biggest recommendation.
yeah, that leads me to my next pet peeve, which is people who ask for advice or like go to the trouble to learn the correct thing and then decide not to do it. And it's one thing if you say like, "Oh, I can't afford to do this or that," and I get that. Like people are on a budget. I'll work with you through that. But like if I tell you like, hey, your bird needs to have constant access to water, and you're like, I'll get it tomorrow. Like, oh, like there are certain things that like I will help, and I try to be a very nice guy, but there are certain things like I had somebody a couple months ago like cuss me out for being mean because like I kept telling them to do like you got to change this, like a big thing that I constantly run into is like perches not side to side but front to back. And it's like that doesn't cost any money. Like you can just the perches that are already in there, you can just trim them and put them in that way. You don't even really have to trim them. You could just slide them in that way and zip tie them. I mean,
Yeah.
there's and so it's like if you're gonna ask me for advice or ask me for help, like I'm not saying you have to follow it to a T, but like don't just say like, I'm not gonna do that. Like my bird's just not gonna have a good life. Sorry. And then like want more advice. I'm like,
Yeah.
don't, like I get 50 DMs a day. I'm giving you my time like for free because I want to help.
Yeah.
Like, if you're, it's one thing to not know, and I'll never hold that against somebody. Oh, I didn't know. Okay, now I know. I'll fix it right now. Like, like my friend Beck who listens, there was a bunch of stuff. He's like, man, I didn't know that. Okay, shoot, I'm gonna do that now. He's awesome, right? Like thumbs up. That's he's doing the best he can for his birds. Getting new information, applying that information, moving forward. That's great. I want to help that guy all the time.
Yeah.
The people that like she's not a listener. There's a lady near me that Chris has heard about. Like I went to her house to get some bird she was selling because she had pairs and then one died and the husbandry wasn't right. So I get there and said, I'm switching to breeding parrotlets. Well, parrotlets are a small African parrot. They're famous for being really, really aggressive, especially when breeding, especially the males. So I go in, she's got a tiny cage that I would use for like one budgie. She's got two pairs of parrotlets and two nest boxes in there. And I told her like, you've really like these birds need to be separated like now. Like while I'm here, you need to separate them. She's like, okay, I'll do it. I'll do it. And I go back a few weeks later, and they're still in there. And it's just like I'm not.
Yeah.
You're not going to get my help, and I'm not going to sell you birds if you're going to make like lazy isn't even the right word, but just like indifferent decisions. I'm not gonna. I can't deal with it. It makes me too upset.
Yeah. I agree. And I think, I have a phase that I always go by, and it's if you're not learning, you're not progressing, right? And I think that's the same with birds as well, right? If you're not constantly learning and adjusting and trying to enhance their environments and their lives daily, it's maybe you shouldn't have animals. I think probably my next pet peeve, Jay, and I have to really monitor myself, or else it can consume me. And it's usually on Facebook. I see all these bird groups, and people post pictures of birds, and they either want genders or they want to know what's wrong with them, or and like some of the information that folks give is really far off. It is not at all accurate, and I probably wouldn't ever have thought of some of the things that people say. And so I guess maybe a word of caution with that as well. Take the information with a grain of salt. Take our information with a grain of salt, right? Everybody has their own perspectives, their own views in life when it comes to their animals. But there's a lot of false information out there, especially in a lot of these clubs or Facebook threads, things like that, that people give out that it's just not true. So um, I have to monitor myself. I don't want to be the one that goes through and corrects everyone and be like, actually,
Or
and
just
I
like
try,
argue with people
yeah,
online.
I try not to be, that guy because that's not my personality. But if it's someone that I know that I care about, then I will chime in and be like, actually, I would recommend maybe looking at it this way or doing this and not what the other person suggested. So take it with a grain of salt, but that can be a pet peeve of mine when people are throwing information out there that really is not true, not accurate, and we want to make sure that we're trying to give true information as accurately as we can. Like I said, everyone has their own perspectives and information, which is totally fine. I get that, and I'm okay with that. But take that with a grain of salt as well when you're going through these threads.
Yeah, there's this phrase I like that's like praise in public and punish in private, and I'm not punishing anybody, but if I see good stuff, that's when you'll get my public comment. Hey, that's awesome. That's great. This is so cool. If I see something where it's like, oh, like,
Yeah,
and I'm gonna try to be really vague here because I don't want to put this person on blast. But like, I saw somebody they mostly keep really peaceful birds, and then all of a sudden they're like, oh, I couldn't resist. I got this really beautiful pair of this other species that I know is like super aggressive, and so like and then they got some other birds to live with it and that are from the same continent but like can't get along and like not can't get along like they don't like each other, like can't get along like that bird's going to kill that bird tonight.
yeah,
So like that was like a private DM, right? I didn't put them on blast in public. I just jumped in their DMs like, hey man, or like if I see somebody getting a ton of bad information, I'll shoot them a DM and be like, look, I've been keeping finches for 25 years. Here's the podcast link.
yeah.
Let's steer you in the right direction because like some of this advice you're getting, like recently, of course, it was on Reddit. Somebody was like, I think my bird has air sac mites. They gave all the symptoms. I agree, air sac mites. And then the top comment that the first comment somebody leaves is like, but they're like, but I don't know what to do. What do I do about air sac mites? And the first person was like, don't do it. You just got to keep them warm and like don't get through it. My bird got through it. And
Yeah.
then it's like, and luckily, in the way Reddit works, you upvote and downvote, right? And I DM'd him, and then I came back and checked on the post a couple days or a couple hours later, and like 16 people had already jumped in and been like, no, like airsac mites, scat, you got to do
Yeah,
scat or
right.
S76. Like there's ivermectin, there's a couple options, but like that is not a let them get. So there's some like illnesses they might be able to power through on their own. Airsac mite's not one of them. That's a parasite. You got to remove them. And then like they responded to me and were like, thanks so much. Like I already ordered the scat. Like keeping it warm till the scat gets here tomorrow, and then we'll be ready to rock. And I was like, okay, great. But stuff like that, I'm like, oh man, like it worked for me one time is not science, right? Or it's been working for me for the past 3 weeks is not science. Like
Right.
nothing that advice that I'm giving on here or saying on here is something I figured out yesterday, unless I say like I'll say like I'm trying this new thing or like we'll see how
Right.
this goes.
Right.
But advice that I give, if somebody DMs me, it's like I've done it this way for 15 years. I tried these 6 other ways. They don't work as well as this way. That's why I do this way.
Yeah.
It's not seat of the pants. I tried it once, yeah. So that's the internet, right?
Yeah. And again, I mean, just double check it, get multiple sources. Even if Jay and I say, hey, I would recommend you do this, I'm fine if you say or double check with 4 other breeders, right, that you trust and believe, because I want you to get the most accurate information. And I think we live in a day where if we see a comment, we take that as the law and we do it and we don't second guess it or question it. And sometimes those could be further from the truth and really would do more harm to your animals than it would benefit. And so just be careful with that. I think, Jay, my last one, I know we're getting along video here. And I think this is more of a local issue. I don't have it with any of our listeners. Obviously, I sell birds, and I try to be reasonably priced. And here in Utah, most of the birds are a little bit higher priced, especially the ones that I own, just because they're harder to get, and so the
Supply and
demand is a little bit
demand.
higher.
Mm.
Exactly. And I feel like I price my birds very reasonably to sell, and I I hate it when people like lowball me and be like, so good example. We've got a local site here that we can post animals on and sell them. It's kind of like a local Craigslist per se. And this was 2 years ago. I had a surplus of canaries, had lots of babies, selling them for super cheap. I mean, they were like $40 is what I was selling them per bird. I mean, just really trying to get rid of them. And this guy that messages me and it's like hey, I'll take $15 for the bird. I'm like, that's where I get frustrated. I'm like, hey, you're not going to find a canary for $40 anywhere else in the state, and any of the surrounding states either. And that's a killer deal, and they want $50, and so I message and I say no, right? And then it's like 3 weeks later, that same person messages and it's like, hey, what's the lowest that you'll go on your canaries? And I still have them priced at $40, and I knew who he was, so I texted back and I said, for you, $150 per bird, because it just made me mad, and it's like, I don't know, be
Yeah,
smart, don't,
I hate the offensive lowball too. Like,
no,
hey, your price is way too high. I'll give
yeah,
you half
just,
of that.
yeah, I guess I think it's more of like a know and recognize what's a good deal and what's not. I'm okay. Like, I have people ask all the time, like, hey, like, would you take $35? Or if I buy two or three birds, would you give me a discount? Like, I'm totally fine with that. And like, I want to work with you. And like I said, I'm not necessarily selling my birds to make money. I want them to go to a good home, I'm really just paying for my seed for the most part. But sometimes that really frustrates me and rubs me the wrong way, and then I just don't either sell them or I double the price
Yeah,
for them.
yeah,
So
I sell below market too. Like I generally try to know. I I spend an embarrassing amount of time keeping track of where the bird market is in the United States, and so I try to be 10, 15, 20% below that market.
right,
And then and I'll work, yeah, I let people make payments. I'll work with people, I'm not uh I'm not in it for the money. I'm not making
right,
money. So I can't,
right.
if I'm in it for the money, I'm doing real bad. But
Same, just same.
yeah, but yeah, and again, yeah, I'm fine with haggling or would you do this, but like the offensive like people, yeah, there's I often find that those people overlap with the people of like, hey, you sold me this bird 3 months ago and it died,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
you owe me a bird. Those people are the same people, and they're like, I had a lady, she wanted a pair of zebra finches, and she lived in northern Mississippi. I live in southern Alabama, but I knew that in a couple months I'd be headed that way. But like, I am not PetSmart, right? Like I don't know what's coming in stock. It's whatever the birds fledge. So I finally got around to where she messaged me and we talked. Said, I'm gonna have some soon. I'm gonna have some soon. She was all excited. Okay, everything seemed fine. And then finally, she said, hey, do you have those birds yet? I was like, look, they fledged. The parents are weaning them, and then I was gonna deliver them for free, save her the shipping money. Very, very. I was gonna go out of my way to deliver them, and I was like, look, I've got two things have to work here. I've got to first have those birds, and then I've got to happen to be going, semi close to you. I'm not going to drive 7 hours round trip to deliver you a pair of zebra finches for free. Like,
right.
not only will I not be making any money, I'll be actively losing a good amount of money at that point. Like, I'm not in the business of paying someone else to take birds. So,
Yeah,
and then she went berserk on me. I mean, called me names. I mean, it was like, had like a mental breakdown on me. And just like, look, like, whoa, I'm a small hobby breeder trying to help as many people as I can, trying to advance the hobby. Like the like entitlement thing is hard to
yeah,
deal with. Yeah, like
yeah.
I've worked extremely hard to get to where I am, and still do. I mean, I every weekend I'm spending hours and hours cleaning the aviary. Me or my wife are feeding the birds every morning. Like they're important to me. They're valuable because I've like made them valuable. And if
Absolutely.
people don't respect that, that's tough to deal with.
Yeah, I agree. Like my birds are loved just as much as my family is. I mean, they are a part of
They're
my
part
family.
of it. Yeah.
I'm not just breeding birds to sell them and to flood the market. I mean, this is a true hobby and passion, and trying to specify on certain species and endangered species. I mean, all the above. It really is, trying, like you said, Jay, advancing the hobby, but for the benefit, right? Not just to get a quick dollar in my pocket or anything like that. And so hopefully those out there that have received birds from me throughout the United States, since Jay helped me this year to start shipping, hopefully you've enjoyed the birds. Hopefully they've been healthy for you. I mean, they've been raised with nothing but love, and they eat way more healthy foods than I eat ever, or my kids. I mean, definitely have a higher level of priority in my household, and they know that, and that's okay. And I still love my family very much, but
I'll
hopefully you
tell
guys
you,
are love the birds. But
yeah, and I've gotten some birds from you, and they're great. But no, I'll close this out with a funny story. So my family always makes fun of me because they call me during the week and I'm doing work, and then they call me on the weekend and I'm on some kind of, my daughter calls them bird adventures. I'm up to some sort of bird hijinks per usual. And my brother called me and I had just gotten, I think like Zaxby's, which if you're not from the South, you don't know maybe. Although they have them in Utah, weirdly,
they do,
but
yes.
it's headquartered in Athens, Georgia. Go Dogs. They have a weird, it's fried chicken is what it is. And so I'm driving back. I think I was driving back from Rhonda's, which is one of my local bird stores, and I had some new birds in the car in the passenger seat in their little travel cage, and I'm eating Zaxby's. And my brother's like, "Wait, are you eating fried bird in front of the birds?" And I was like, it's different. It's different. But then like I had to look over the birds and be like, it's not what you think. You're not next. I'm not going to eat you. So
My
yeah, no,
my
the
wife's
pet birds are important to me.
my wife. So we both have button quail, and they can be egg laying machines. And so at certain points of the year, I'll just collect their eggs and I'll boil them and put them in their egg food and feed them back to them. And my wife thinks that's the grossest thing. She's like, "You're feeding them their own babies. That is disgusting. Why would you feed them their own eggs?" And I'm like, "Well, I feed them chicken eggs all the time for their protein. You don't seem to be grossed out by that." And she's like, "That's different. These ones, they laid them in your shed and you took them and boiled them and gave them back to them." It's like, I mean, I guess if you think about it, it's kind of like, oh yeah, I'm letting you eat your own eggs,
Well,
but
if they haven't set on them, then they're not
right,
technically,
yeah,
yeah, they're just a yolk, right?
yeah.
And some of them aren't even fertile. Yeah, I've done the same thing. And then, but do your quail every once in a while, my buttons will pop an egg themselves and eat it.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah,
And then
or if I like accidentally step on an egg, I mean, they go to town. They clean it up in just a few seconds. They love it.
right. And then in my recent video of my button quail hatching, the shaft tails, and I'm like
Yeah.
right there, they're flying past me trying to eat the eggshell off the chick while it's hatching. So, and then that's my cue of like, okay, I need to put more eggshell in the egg food because obviously they're interested in the calcium. So
You
yeah, I
know, and
mean, nature is not kind, right?
no,
It's
they are
not.
not kind. And a cool tip, and then we're done, Jay. Shaft tails, zebra finches, there's one other species. Can't remember off the top of my head. They normally and naturally will eat their eggshells as the chicks hatch. Your society finches, your canaries, most of the other finches, they'll disregard or they'll toss the hatched out egg outside. But some of your species, they'll eat it. That's why you'll rarely ever see hatched out zebra finch or shaft tail egg on the floor or even still in their nest because they eat the egg as the chick hatches out. So kind of a fun fact or
N-
tip, or at least something that I have observed very frequently throughout my many
no,
years of breeding finches.
same. Yeah, it's nutrient reclamation and dud eggs too.
Uh-huh.
Same
Yeah.
thing. They in the wild, they have a very finite amount of resources. They have to risk their life to go eat and everything. So they're not going to waste an eggshell that didn't get used. They're going to eat it and make another egg out of it. That's what they're
Yeah.
doing.
Yeah. I always know
So
when my canaries hatch because I watch the bottom of the floor and they'll always have an egg on the bottom. Zebra finches, I never know when they hatch because they eat their egg.
they eat the whole thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
canaries, you find little half egg.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right,
Anyways,
Chris. If they have a question about a pet peeve, where can they find you?
I was gonna say we bashed everyone on the pet peeves, but please keep reaching out and
Yeah,
asking questions.
I
We
promise
really do
I'm
enjoy
nice.
it. So
Everybody get in the comments and tell people we're nice.
we love you guys. Facebook, Instagram, reach out to me. Instagram is birdnerd4. Facebook and YouTube is just Bird Nerd, all the same logo. I respond on all platforms, but I'm the quickest at Instagram. That seems to be the easiest platform for me to respond to. So if you have a question, DM me, PM me, and I'm happy to reach out. So how about you, Jay? How can they get a hold of you?
Instagram is the easiest and the best way. So I'm on Instagram, obviously YouTube, Facebook. I'm on Reddit, which you can DM there too, and then I'm on Threads, which sucks. I don't know if you can DM on Threads. No one ever does. Threads is terrible. But yeah, and all jokes aside, I know this was our airing of the grievances episode, right? But um, we do want to help. We love helping. We just ask, come to us with an open mind. We promise we won't be judgmental. We just want to help you and help your birds. That's why we're here. That's what we're doing. That's why I'm up at midnight on the road filming these
Yeah.
podcasts. Can't even see
Yep.
straight, but I'm here filming a
Yeah.
podcast for y'all.
I hear you. Yeah, I agree 100%. Please reach out. We love you guys.
All right. Thanks, y'all. We'll catch you in the next one.